Hello! Welcome to the NOWMAN Show. I am NOWMAN, the superhero of the present moment. Hello, this is Niswander and welcome to the NOWMAN Show. Joining us here in the studio is Michael James Kacey. He's an actor, writer, and filmmaker. His acting credits include Beverly Hills 90210, the Mick Jones directed film Live from Baghdad starring Michael Keaton, and a role in the independent film Daybreak, which he also wrote, produced, and directed. After filming was completed, and Michael wrote a book about his experience, which is entitled Long Night's Journey into Daybreak, 10 Things You Need to Know Before You Make Your First Feature Film. Michael operates his own production company called Anthracite Films, and in addition to Daybreak, he also produced the documentary The Poet Laureate of Radio, an interview with Norman Corwin. His current documentary film project is called Hearing Voices, How Radio Changed America, and America Changed Radio. Michael James Kacey, welcome to the NOWMAN Show.
Thank you. A pleasure to be here on the NOWMAN Show.
Right now.
In the moment.
In the moment. That's right, exactly. You're originally from Pennsylvania, is that correct?
Yes, yeah, I'm originally from a coal mining town called Shamokin, Pennsylvania, in the northeastern section. So my production company is called Anthracite Films, and that's a nod towards what had been the major industry.
Ah, now I understand that connection. Okay. I have been to Pennsylvania. Now, what in the world interested you in coming to Hollywood?
Well, I wanted to be an actor. That was the thing that early in my career, my life, I felt I got a lot of joy and pleasure from as an artist, so I said, I want to be an actor. And to be honest, I was a little too intimidated to do that out of high school, so I joined the Army.
Oh, wow.
I actually did 5 years in the United States Army, and I ended up doing theater there. I ended up directing some shows there.
Oh,
and in addition to being a soldier, I actually got my feet wet as an artist. So then I got out of the Army and I went to Penn State and got a degree in theater and started doing some local radio and television. And then I said, well, you know, it's either one coast or the other. You're going to be an actor, you're either going to go to New York City or you're going to go to Los Angeles. LA wins, hands down.
Yeah, exactly. I hear you. So what kind of roles did you take on when you first came out here?
Well, I always say my whole career was one scene, one line, one paycheck. I'm a character actor. I always was a character actor. Yeah. I was bald by the time I was out here, you know, doing jobs. So I played a lot of let's see. I played a security guard in an episode of All That, which was on Nickelodeon. It's one of my biggest scenes. But mostly, for example, I was on Beverly Hills 90210. I was the boss of a car wash. My line was, who are you guys? I did, Mick Jones had directed Live from Baghdad. I had a scene with Michael Keaton. My line to him was, who the hell are you? And then I play the scene and I have to react, and it went very well. It was a pleasure working with him, and it was wonderful. But it wasn't sustaining me as an artist. You know, it really wasn't. And as an actor, you don't have a lot of control over things. And in the late 1990s, there was a lot of independent films were taking off, and I said, well, why don't I try my hand at that?
So that's how you went from acting into producing your first film, which was called Daybreak.
Right.
What is the storyline of that film?
The storyline of Daybreak, the tagline is the beginning of a new day, the end of an old life. And it's best described as a dark version of It's a Wonderful Life with no Clarence the Angel.
Oh, wow.
So it is a nightmare film where a man makes a wish to change something in his past. And when it does, it destroys his past, present, and future. And it was shot mostly in Pennsylvania, in the coal mining town. I wanted a very dark, depressing look, and it was shot in Los Angeles. So the happy part of his life at the beginning is in Los Angeles. There's a color palette. We go to Pennsylvania. I shot in March, and it's always overcast, and the trees are barren and such. And so artistically, I was very, very happy with it. Finished the film. It played a couple of film festivals, and then got a direct-to-video release. So, but it wasn't successful enough to get me an opportunity to do another film.
I see.
And that's the key. You want something that's successful enough to get you another step up on the rung. And it didn't quite do that for me.
What year did that come out?
2001.
2001. Mm-hmm. And what was the budget? Just curious.
We shot that on Super 16 film, so I started in film, which is a rarity now. And it was about $150,000, and that was raised with a lot of my money, friends and family, and a few private investors.
Okay, now, after you finished Daybreak, you also wrote a book about your experiences, which is called, do we have the book? There we go. Long Night's Journey into Daybreak, 10 Things You Need to Know Before You Make Your First Feature Film. So was this book would you say, a primer for young filmmakers or aspiring filmmakers?
That's what it was designed for. When I shot Daybreak, I took copious notes. Every day I would recount what went on in the shoot. And then after the shoot was completed, I kind of fleshed it out and felt that there was an opportunity to share what worked and what didn't work. And some of it was things they don't tell you in film school.
And you also decided to produce a documentary about radio legend Norman Corwin and his work in radio. Briefly, for those who may not know who Norman Corwin is, what he's known for, can you tell us a little bit about him?
Yeah, Norman Corwin in the 1940s was one of the stars at CBS, and it was very unique. He got into radio through poetry, and he was a writer, director, producer. And one of his biggest series was called 26 by Corwin. So his name was in the title of these shows on CBS. And it was 26 weeks. And he wrote and directed every show, and every show was different. And he wrote comedies and dramas and war dramas and musicals and just any flights of fancy that would come to mind. So he really took radio and stretched its possibilities to the limit. Anything was possible. And in 1941, he also did the first 4-network broadcast, all 4 networks combined. It was a show it was celebrating the 150th anniversary of the Bill of Rights.
Wow.
And it was called We Hold These Truths. It starred Jimmy Stewart. Orson Welles was in the cast, as was Edward G. Robinson. It was an hour long, and it's in the National Archives now. It's preserved in the National Archives. It won a Peabody.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Now, your current documentary film is called Hearing Voices, How Radio Changed America and America Changed Radio. And that's an unfinished work in progress. Let's watch the first clip.
All right.
The Hindenburg disaster. I remember that guy telling you that thing over the radio, and he was so vivid. You saw it. You really saw it happening in your mind's eye.
Rising to the ground, not quite to the mooring mast of the humanity.
All Americans timed their meals, their existences, to their favorite radio programs.
This was coming through the air, and I was hearing it.
And you stayed at night and never took your eyes off the radio.
I was listening to the radio from the time I got up until the time I went to bed at night.
I had to listen to Orson on the car radio, and my father would shout at me, you know, no more than half an hour now, you run the battery down.
Mercury Theater on the air in The War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells. Ladies and gentlemen, we interrupt our program of dance music to bring you a special bulletin. Reports observing several explosions of incandescent gas occurring at regular intervals on the planet Mars.
Reported that at 8:50 p.m., a huge flaming object, believed to be a meteorite, fell on a farm in the neighborhood of Grover's Mill, New Jersey.
I have a grave announcement to make. Those strange beings who landed in the Jersey farmlands tonight are the vanguard of an invading army from the planet Mars.
I shall not try to conceal the gravity
The smoke's spreading faster. It's reaching Times Square. People are trying to run away from it, but it's no use. They're falling like flies.
People were yelling in the streets, the world is coming to an end. We're being attacked by Mars.
They were getting into their cars and driving towards the George Washington Bridge, trying to escape. a Martian invasion. Can you believe it?
But I remember running in the street because we saw everybody else out in the street.
It would strain, you would think, the credulity of a 12-year-old.
People just were so naive at the time that they thought, good heavens, this is true.
It was out of control. The whole thing was scary.
Wow. Voices thrill us, voices frighten us.
You know, those memories I've got from some of the old-time radio veterans were just precious. They were so kind with their time, and those memories, these memories are 70 years ago, and they're still very vivid to them. And then, of course, voices frighten us with the lessons learned from the War of the World. And just doing this regular radio show, trying to find a way to adapt this H.G. Wells classic, and there were unintended consequences.
And why not do it on Halloween night, 1938, right? During the Depression and all. Okay, now let's. People certainly relied on radios for breaking news and information. I know I did. This is my very first radio right here. Yeah. But it was theater and music entertainment also. So let's watch our next clip.
Larry, I'm a burglar, and I'm inside a house. They're asleep, but I gotta wait till I'm sure they're asleep, and then I'm gonna rob them. I said, well, why do you call me? He says, well, you're very big with burglars. Because burglary is a lonely job.
It was live. Live at that moment. No 5-second delay.
Run, run! The Philistines are coming. In the Bible, the Philistines are the big giants. And on live radio, I said, run, run! The Philippines are coming.
I said, look, they're snubbling show on it. Well, 6 actors dropped onto the floor, rolled about in front of me.
And he was standing on top of his turntable in nothing but a jockstrap, because he dearly loved to try to break us up on air.
Changeover from pop, rhythm and blues, into what was termed originally by Alan Freed, rock and roll.
Elvis Presley recorded this music.
A song called That's All Right Mama.
They played it on WHBQ.
They just wanted to hear this guy, who everybody thought, until they saw his picture come out in the paper a couple of days later, they thought he was black.
Just boom.
There had never been a sound like Elvis Presley on the radio before.
Voices amuse us, voices sing to us.
Larry was delightful. He had so many memories, and you know, the documentary is of course the history of radio and exploring the impact of it as a medium, but so much of it was also funny, the funny things that happened on radio behind the scenes. So that's kind of what I'm going for there, and I've got you may not know this, but you talked about radio as entertainment. They used to do 2 shows. They'd have to do a broadcast, say, of Fibber, McGee, and Molly, or Duffy's Tavern. They do it for the East Coast, and 3 hours later, they have to come back and do it again, same show, for the West Coast feed. And it was not uncommon for actors to get drunk.
Oh, wow.
Between one show or the other, or guest stars. Usually the regular cast members didn't. And Tommy Cook was a child actor, told me of a story where Ed Gardner, who starred and wrote Duffy's Tavern, was blotto for the East Coast show. It's the first show. He was sober for the second one.
Wow, wow.
So these are some things that, you know, these radio performers had to think on their feet. So we got those stories.
Yeah, and they didn't have the 10-second delay things back then, right? It was just go for it, whatever happened, you know.
They did not.
And of course, you know, the term Alan Freed on the radio coined the term rock and roll. So,
big, you know, and another part of the evolution of radio, because everyone figured radio was going to die when television came into being, and radio just evolved. That's what media does. It evolves. It finds another reason to exist. And the music, and you just showed a transistor radio. Transistor was a game changer. Before you had these big tubes.
Yes.
And you really didn't have a portable radio. After World War II, you had the transistor, you had small radios. This was portable. Generational listening was born. You could listen to music different than your parents, which was what was going on. Alan Freed was capitalizing on that. So there's rhythm and blues. And then the white artists that were covering rhythm and blues artists, it was rock and roll. And Alan Freed was also a concert promoter. So he did his shows, played his records, but also would have concerts. Integrated lineup on the stage, integrated audience. It was scandalous.
It was scandalous, wasn't it? Indeed.
But radio had something to do with that, with the changing, a new generation. I read someone had written in a book that the airwaves weren't segregated. They couldn't be. Anyone could turn to any station and they could hear what they wanted to hear.
That's right, and it was radio really that broke rock and roll. I actually met the guy that played "That's All Right, Mama" when I was with the Jerry Lee Lewis entourage in Memphis, Tennessee. So it was a special moment being the youngest guy in the room and listening to all this. Sam Phillips was there, and James Burton, and people that were there at the very beginning, and when that was all happening on radio.
And they had the freedom to do it, which is something else that has changed over the years. There was now it's a much tighter structure, but they had freedom to do it.
That's true.
Yeah.
This is Niswander. You are watching the NOWMAN show, and I'm here with Michael James Kacey. Let's watch our next clip.
They don't give a damn whether we are bright or cultivated or not.
Every product is targeted at a particular demographic.
They're interested in us buying their products.
It's not an entertainment medium. It's not an educational medium. It's a sales medium.
An oracle is on the air speaking daily to millions of people and poisoning their minds.
Come in, Ed Murrow.
The best news coverage ever was Edward R. Murrow in World War II in London. Murrow would go up on the roof of buildings when the Germans were bombing, and they did shows, you'd hear bombs, and he would say, "This is Edward R. Murrow, London." Whoa.
Wow, voices sell us and voices talk to us.
Sure. When you talk about radio, as our Linkletter said, it's a sales medium, and it became a commercial medium, and that's how it's thrived through the years. And of course, talk radio really saved AM radio. That was a game changer there. And there was a number of reasons that occurred, but it's something that's still with us. And when used properly, it's fantastic. When used improperly, it's a menace.
So let's go on to our next clip right now.
The biggest ratings in radio are thanks to talk radio.
With the Fairness Doctrine lifted, the heyday of modern political talk radio began.
It's preaching to the choir, and they're all jumping around. They spread false rumors.
These guys are often mistaken by their audience as people who really believe in what they're doing and do it for some ideological reason.
Rush Limbaugh is a showman of the first order.
They're business guys, and they're looking at the bottom line.
If talk radio hadn't come along, AM radio would have just gone away, and none of us would even remember that there was an AM radio.
The phrase I heard when I was a kid repeatedly was, "The airwaves belong to the people."
A company can own 1,500 radio stations. Oh, that's a lot of power.
We need diversity of opinion. And you need all sorts of opinions because there are all sorts of people in this country. This country is filled with diverse nations. When these companies can grasp more and more power and get more and more stations and dictate more and more what they want you to hear, whether or not that is close to the truth, is not good. It's not healthy.
The internet is so filled with misinformation.
The internet began with all of this utopian discussion of endless choices for everyone.
I'm on the internet, and I take it a half hour every day, and we've had great success, and it's also got great guests because I've had a following, so they come to me.
So what inspired you to go deeply into the subject of radio?
When I started the film Hearing Voices, it was really going to be this celebration of the golden age of radio. That's where it started. And the more research I did, the more serious it became. The deeper the impact of radio as a medium, any mass medium. And when I finally started seeing parallels between how the radio matured and looked at the internet, which is the greatest means to communicate that's ever been devised, which radio had been a century before, I started seeing some alarming parallels. And to me, that's where the battle is. They call it net neutrality, but it's really net equality. That's what we're talking about.
Net equality, yeah, exactly. So. And with satellite and internet radio, online podcasts, and they're becoming more and more popular. How do you see, or shall I say, hear the future of radio?
I think radio is going to continue on as it has. It will continue to evolve. We have listening on demand. We're not gonna go back on that. We're only going to go forward with podcasts and things like that. That's great. But in emergencies, let me tell you, radio is where we're all going to go, and that's the great power of radio. Even in an emergency, you're never alone. Because, you know, if television goes out, Mark Fisher of the Washington Post told me, he said, hey, if TV fails in an emergency, your television is a doorstop.
That's true.
It has no value.
That's true. We need a backup for everything, right? Just like emails and paper, even sometimes.
Radio is. It's an incredibly important medium, resilient medium. But its purpose in our lives will change.
Exactly. There's no doubt about that. So Hearing Voices is a work in progress, right? So how can people learn about your projects and what's going on?
Well, the easiest place to go to is our website, which is hearingvoicesofthemovie.com. And on that website, you can explore all of the interviews we've done. You can look at the trailers, some of the things that we put together. And also, we have a fiscal sponsor, which is the International Documentary Association, the IDA. And that's an organization where people can go and they can actually donate to specific films. And because the IDA is a 501c3, it's nonprofit, it's a tax deduction. So it's an opportunity for people to contribute to help films get made, such as mine, or other films, and get a tax deduction. And but also just bookmark it and keep coming back, and find us on Twitter and Facebook. You know, and I appreciate support, whether it's financial or whether it's moral. You know, just to say, hey, you know, keep doing it, Mike.
Yeah,
it's worth it.
That's definite. I mean, keep doing the great work. I think it's phenomenal what we're seeing so far. I'm looking forward to seeing the next chapters and the finished product even more so. We'll be sure to put the websites in the closing credits so people can get that information there as well. And Michael James Kacey, thank you so much for being on the NOWMAN Show. This is Niswander, and like I said, you are watching the NOWMAN Show right now. Hello, this is Niswander of the NOWMAN Show. I'm here with Michael James Kacey. Michael, I have a question for you.
Yes.
I think we need a new renaissance. What can we do together to make the world a better place?
What can we do together to make the world a better place? Well, we can start by owning up to our own actions, and by accepting people for who they are, one-on-one. If you and I were to go out into the streets and walk around, we could help that renaissance by not judging and talking to people and inviting more people into our lives. I think that from there could flow some really great things. It's not easy to do, and everyone would have to buy in on it.
That's right.
But it could be nice.
That's excellent. Thank you very much. This is Niswander with Michael James Kacey. Hello, this is NOWMAN. I'm at the Bronson Cave, best known as the Bat Cave, here in the Hollywood Hills. It's the location of at least 100 films and television show episodes for about 100 years. Started in 1919 with Lightning Bryce. 1925 was The Riders of the Purple Sage, obviously a Western. In the 30s, films like White Zombie in 1932 and the original The Three Musketeers in 1933. Also, Zorro Rides Again, Dick Tracy Returns, Atom Man vs. Superman, Return of Dracula in the 1950s, as well as The Day the World Ended in 1955, the original The Lone Ranger in 1956, and The Cyclops in 1957. In 1956, this was the site of the original The Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Oh, I think I just found the eggs. In the 1960s, there were films shot here such as the Batman movie. Of course, it was based on the characters of the television series, and it was called Batman the Movie. Imagine that. Also obscure things like Head with the Monkees, Frank Zappa, Jack Nicholson, Octoman in the 1970s, Sword and the Sorcerer in the 1980s, and television. All of the Star Trek television series, from the original series to Enterprise, filmed scenes here. And speaking of science fiction, also The Outer Limits. And westerns such as Bonanza, Little House on the Prairie, The Lone Ranger, and Gunsmoke, which was the longest running series on television, well, at least until The Simpsons. Also The Monkees, Wonder Woman, Mission Impossible, A-Team, and even more recently, Twin Peaks, V, and Beauty and the Geek. This location is known most as the Batcave because in the opening scenes of the 1960s television series Batman, the Batmobile drove out from this very spot. And this is definitely one of the most interesting film locations in all of the Los Angeles area, but probably the most iconic image of Hollywood that is filmed more than any other is the Hollywood sign itself. This is NOWMAN speaking to you from Los Angeles, Hollywood.
Said and done, I wanna know I did the right thing and had a lot of fun, and I say